In this lecture, we will be looking at DevOps. So if we take a company, nowadays, almost all the companies use computer science, use softwares to make their lives easy and to carry out the tasks. So when it comes to the modern development practices that are used by software companies, we know that there's continuous integration where the developers continuously merge their changes to the main branch quite often. And the changes are validated by the builds and testing, quality assurance, etc. So by doing so, you avoid errors that may happen when people do the coding. So you don't have to wait until the final day to merge everything and test. You do it as an ongoing process. So continuous integration emphasizes on testing automation to check whether the application runs perfectly without any errors or breaks. It also checks what will happen when new commits are put into the main branch. Along with that, we have something called continuous delivery. So this is an extension to the thing that we were discussing earlier, continuous integration. So continuous delivery makes sure that you can release new changes to the customer in a sustainable way. That is to say that on top of having your testing process, you will also automate your release process, and you can deploy the application at any point. So with continuous delivery, you can release daily, weekly, fortnightly, or whichever the time that you are comfortable with. And the releases happen in small batches since you are continuously doing the release. The next thing is continuous deployment. Well, this is a step further than continuous delivery. So with this practice, all the changes that pass the stages of a production pipeline is released to your customer, which means there's no human intervention and only a failed test will prevent a new change. So this escalates the feedback loop with your customer. And it takes pressure off the team as there's no release day. There's nothing called a release day anymore. If we take a simplified look at an enterprise, well, you have business analysis. Business analysts, they gather requirements from the customer. The customer is the one who says what he's got in his mind. This is what I want and all. And the business analyst takes them down and passes it to the application development team. These are your agile teams, the developers. Then this is passed to the software testing and quality assurance team. So we have the QA people, the programmers who write new code, and the QA people who test it. Once you have written your code and tested it, you pass this to the release stage. Since you have approved the code after testing, you pass it on to the release stage. Here, the release engineers, technicians, etc., bridge the gap between application development and the environment. Finally, this is being passed on to the product team, the IT operations, the infrastructure team, the system administrators, network engineers, technicians. They're responsible to keep everything up and running. So once this is done, the product is finally available to the users or the customers. So you have your agile team. First of all, you have your business departments, stakeholders, you have needs. Then the agile team, they build the program, and then you have the IT operations who support this to keep it up and running. And finally, you have your end users, the customers who are going to use the system for whatever the purpose and maybe make money out of it. So what is DevOps? This is a collaboration between developers and operations. So it's not about tools, automation, access rights, or teams. It's actually about communication, understanding, integration, and relationships. In DevOps, you develop systems and not software. It promotes a set of processes and methods for thinking about communication and collaboration between development, quality assurance, and IT operations. So this is a set of practices that automate the processes between software development and IT operations so that they can build, test, and release software faster and more reliably. This is the concept of DevOps is founded on building a culture of collaboration between teams that historically functioned in relative isolation. So previously, the two teams, software development and IT operations, they functioned separately in isolation, but not anymore. Through DevOps, we are connecting them for better and faster and reliable software production. The benefits of DevOps is it increased trust and software releases are faster, and you can easily and quickly solve critical issues. Also, you can manage unplanned work in a better way. At its core, DevOps is a culture, a movement, a philosophy. It's a handshake between development and operations that emphasize a shift in mindset, collaboration, and tighter integration. So this unites continuous delivery, automation, and it helps development and operation teams to be more efficient. So this aims at building a culture and environment where programming, testing, and releasing software happens frequently, quickly, and more reliably. It talks about better communication and collaboration so that developing, testing, releasing, and running a software can happen in a better way. So instead of delivering in huge chunks, DevOps takes a continuous delivery approach, which we discussed earlier, which means you release in small incremental improvements regularly. So you have your developers, you have your IT operations, and you develop a handshake between these two through DevOps. This movement started sometime between 2007 and 2008, when IT operations and software development communities got vocal about what they felt was a fatal level of dysfunction in the industry. The developers and IT operations had isolated jobs, objectives. They were not working together, and they formed performed in their own targets, indicators. The result was that these isolated teams were concerned only about their own targets, silos. So the ultimate product was not up to the standard of the end customer. Therefore, people came up with a handshake between these two functions. So it uses continuous delivery, configuration management, and it adds value to the business. It's a good performance metrics. So how does DevOps work? So we said it has continuous delivery. Let's see how DevOps works. So we have the stages: plan, code, build, test, release, deploy, and operate. So these steps in DevOps are run through continuous delivery, continuous integration, and agile development, where the core is collaboration. DevOps always wants to deliver changes soon. So why do we need DevOps? Developers say that they wait most of the time. They are waiting for something. And the infrastructure guys say, we don't have capacity to do what you want us to do. The testing people say that our system is not realistic. Level 1 operations say that they don't know who to escalate the problem to. Application supporters say that they're constantly fighting. And finally, the executives say, what on earth is IT operations doing? I need new applications now. So this is why we need DevOps. There are problems everywhere. DevOps will break the walls between the development and operations team, so everybody works together. So nobody is isolated. Nobody will have isolated problems. Everybody will get together and solve everyone's problem. The wall of confusion is removed. So there's one team with one goal. It's not separated teams with separated goals. So development, when we talk about the gaps which make us feel the need of DevOps, mostly the features are delivered after testing in a development system. Developers may have faster turnaround times regarding features, but not much concerned about the infrastructure as well as the deployment impact of the code changes. The operations view is that uptime is usually rewarded. The lesser the turnaround time regarding future development, larger the number of builds will come their way. So DevOps, developers work with operations to understand the impact of code changes, and they work more closely with production equivalent systems. Operations are now more clear on infrastructure needs, and there's more automation, plus better collaboration. DevOps starts with people. It brings in automation, it stays lean and measures everything, and finally it shares, collaborates. CALMS. CALMS stands for culture, automation, lean, measurement, sharing. This is the conceptual framework for the integration of development teams and operations. CALMS is a framework that is used as a maturity model for DevOps. So culture looks at hearts and minds and embraces change. Automation looks at infrastructure. Lean, it focuses on producing for the end user. Metrics, it measures everything. And sharing is about collaboration. DevOps is about cross-functional collaboration. DevOps doesn't solve problems with tools, it solves problems with humans. Once you think about everyone in general, without separating each team, you understand that people are sharing a common goal. They're working towards the same target. So the objectives are similar for everybody. Then when it comes to automation, investing in automation eliminates repetitive manual work and it yields repeatable processes. Teams new to automation usually start with continuous delivery. The practice of running each code change through a set of automated tests, then packaging up successful builds and promoting them towards production. This is not quick and easy, but the return on investment is worth it. Another contribution of DevOps is the idea of configuration as code. Developers strive to create modular applications because they are more reliable. Systems always change, but when we use this approach, it becomes more reliable. When it comes to lean, in the context of software, we think about eliminating unvaluable activities and moving ahead quickly. But when it comes to DevOps, it is the concepts of continuous improvement and embracing failure that we look at when it comes to lean. So team members are able to visualize their work in progress. They limit the batch sizes and manage the queue lengths. Automating everything can be a pitfall. It applies to team sizes as well. Larger teams find it more difficult to agree on something. Code deployments to the production environment should be in small chunks and frequent rather than automating everything at the same time and plugging in everything to the end environment. When it comes to measurement, it is hard to prove your continuous improvement efforts. Also, it's hard to prove that your efforts are improving something. You need data for this. So therefore, there are loads of tools and technologies to measure performance, like how much time users spend in your product, whether the blog post generated any sales, etc. When your team members can visualize their work, the progress, it will always help everybody to stay on track, make better decisions. And also share your progress with other teams as well. Sharing is the long-standing friction between development and operation teams is due to lack of common ground. So sharing responsibilities, collaboration is the way to bridge it. The team members will have a rotating role. Developers address issues caused by the end user. At the same time, they troubleshoot production problems, so they have rotating roles.